Social media makes it easier to see firsthand the uncensored tragedies unfolding, with graphic content making its way into the feeds of children. Tonight, our Naomi Sanchez has more on how parents can talk with their kids about war. And we do want to warn you, some images in this story may be disturbing.
It's images like these that show the realities of war. And on social media, that reality is often taps away for children.
So as a child who doesn't have the coping skills and doesn't have the concept of reality, it's really hard for them.
According to USA Today, the app Bright Canary reports in the first weeks of conflict, YouTube searches between Israel and the war increased by over 1,000% among kids 9 to 13 years old. Professionals warn the psychological effects of this exposure on kids can be deep.
Yes, there are going to be emotional concerns, will be anxiety, distress, concerns about their safety.
Concerns that can even affect physical health.
Because they're having headaches, they're having stomach aches, they're having the pressure in their chest.
For young children, breaking down the concept of war starts with creating a distance from it.
So clarifying the context of safety in the community where they're at right now, and probably give them more context on where the things are happening, how distant it is.
And for teenagers,
process together, talk about it, clarify questions, explain what really is happening.
But most importantly, paying close attention to your child's social media feeds and drawing boundaries accordingly is essential.
So we have to be able to take control of those situations and say, you know, this isn't healthy for you.
And when things get overwhelming, experts advise families to just disconnect. Naomi Sanchez, KLTV 7 News.
Mental health experts say reaching out to school counselors can be a good starting point to get your kids additional help. Medicaid, CHIP Marketplace, and most common insurance plans do cover therapy visits if necessary.